So, on the sofa with me today, I'm joined by Sarah. Hi, Sarah, welcome.
Hello, Julie.
Right, and
Happy
Sarah
New
and I,
Year.
I'm good, thank you. All right, we've got some friends to play with today. All right, so at the other end of the sofa, we've got Julie Goddard and Amira Norris. So, welcome to the cafe, Julie and Amira.
Thank you, ladies, for having
Thank
us
you.
along. The nice four-seater sofa.
So, if you've listened to previous episodes, so I'm thinking specifically about Giselle Galper's episode, about Nicola Peake's episode. And what we were focusing there on was about how you progress your career has a big influence on how much money you make. And obviously, that's one of the things that we're all about is trying to empower women about money. So with that idea of how do you progress your career, how do you make the most out of, the circumstances you find yourselves in, Julie and Amira have got so much gold to share with us. And they're here really specifically to talk to us about the power of mentoring, which, if I think back to earlier on in my career, I would have given my left arm and probably Sarah's left arm as well to have a mentor, but I didn't. So before we sort of dive into everything, would you just like to introduce yourself for the listeners? I know some of them will know you already, but for those that don't know who you are,
Yeah,
Amira.
we're happy to do that. Yeah, so I'm Amira. I have had a 25-year to date career in financial services. So I started as a financial advisor and had my own business in financial advice, and then moved into the investment platform world. So that is the kit that financial advisors effectively use to manage their clients' money. So I now work for one of the investment platforms. And I decided to set up this business with Julie. And Julie is actually my partner in life as well as in business, because Julie's got a very different background to mine, but they both lend themselves really nicely to each other for what we've done with the mentor standard.
That was a nice segue into me, wasn't it? So I'm Julie. I'm a partner, co-founder of the Mentor Standard along with Amira. My background is that for many years I worked in leadership in the education sector, finalising with working for Ofsted, so quality control and inspections and standards, and making sure that everybody got a really good deal. And then I retrained and became a business psychologist and executive coach. So I'm also an award-winning mentor. And when Amira came to me with the idea of launching something to help more women get into mentoring and understand what good mentoring looks like and how to be a good mentor, it just seemed that our skill sets really did complement each other.
Yeah, and luckily it turns out we can work together, which is a nice thing to discover as well.
Held our breath for a brief moment, but it's all worked out. So,
Well, I think, being in a relationship with an executive coach, I think that's probably going to make things a little bit easier. And then all your own skills,
Totally.
I would hope.
Totally.
Oh.
Totally. So I've had effectively free coaching for 20 years. It's been absolutely brilliant. But the downside to it is I'm never let off the hook. So if I'm doing something that's not quite right, or I want to dodge something difficult, I don't get away with it. So there's a slight downside to it as well.
that's called accountability. That's
True.
Right, we're going off track immediately. Okay, because there's something I need to ask you, Julie. Right, because I'm in a similar position to you in that I've got another half, and obviously I coach as well. So, Julie, do you ask permission sometimes, or do you say, do you want me to reply as a coach, or do you want me to reply as your significant other?
I have to say yes to that. I do both of those. And then at times I also I'm asking, like the question's preempted. So sometimes I'm asking you as your partner, not as a coach. I don't want a coach response, which is really difficult, really, because that's part of, sometimes when you really love what you do, it becomes a part of who you are. So sort of to press pause on that. And normally my answer to that is, well, do you want the best outcome for yourself? which is me answering as a coach, isn't it? I've just realised, yeah, I failed at the first hurdle.
Oh, if my girlfriend's listening to this, she's writing that one down to see if it pops its head up. You're still coaching me. Stop it. Right, we did go off track. It just popped into my head there. I thought, oh, we're in the same position. I thought
Good
I
question.
always find myself accidentally coaching when sometimes she doesn't want that.
True story.
All right. Okay, so probably what would be a really good place to start is because I'm sitting here and I know that mentoring can be really powerful and something that could help our audience and all the listeners. You know that. Sarah, you know that too as well, don't you?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So maybe a good place to start with, could you just, Julie, maybe talk to us what mentoring is?
I can talk to you for a long time, but Amira can answer that in one sentence.
Yeah, so we often get asked, what is the difference between a mentor and a coach? And the two often get confused and interchanged with each other. And in the spirit of what we like to do with our business, we like to keep it really simple. So we have a really simple definition between a coach and a mentor. So we say that a mentor is someone who has very good answers for the questions that you've got, whereas a coach has very good questions for your answers. So the difference in the relationship is that a mentor is really there to be your trusted friend and advisor, to be there on your side and to help and guide you, and sometimes give you the answers that you're looking for, because that's what you need them to do. Whereas a coach is somebody there to really challenge your growth, your development, and will often be spending more time asking you questions to make you do the deep thinking for yourself, rather than be there to dig you out of the hole or the problem that you may have at the time it's presenting itself to you.
I think that's beautifully put.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, Amira said simplicity is one of our core standards in the business. So it's important. There's an awful lot of noise out there, and there's an awful lot of misunderstanding really about what a mentor is. I think the first thing to say is if you're looking for a mentor, it doesn't really involve an exchange of money. It's more about a relationship. It's more about the ethos that mirrors our business ethos, which is rise by lifting others. So it's when you meet somebody that you know, or you're introduced to somebody that you know, and you think, gosh, that person could really help me develop here. And that's what's at the heart of mentoring, whereas coaching is a more professional arrangement with somebody who probably should have qualified and done all their qualifications and belongs to a professional body. Mentoring is different. Advice comes into mentoring. It might be really interesting for your audience, Julie, to look at the story of where mentoring began, because I think there's a real misconception of the fact that the first mentor was mentioned in the Iliad. So we're talking ancient Greece, we're talking, Troy, the wooden horse, all of that story and mythology, and it involves a character called Mentor. Do you want to pick up the story, Amira?
Yeah, so there's Odysseus. And so Odysseus goes off to fight in the Trojan Wars, the one with the wooden horse. And he leaves behind his wife and his son, Telemachus. Now, Telemachus is the rightful birthright of Odysseus's kingdom, of his land, of his castle. And whilst Odysseus is off fighting in the war, everybody is after the wife Penelope, because to marry Penelope would be to take that birthright away from Telemachus and become the king and take his rightful position.
It's all worth mentioning at this point. Penelope wants none of it. She's very happily married. She hasn't given up on her husband, but more than that, she's sort of enjoying being this independent woman, which in ancient Greece, didn't come across very often. So she had control of her own finances for once,
Exactly.
In the bank, and enough drachmae to last her. So she was really happy, but they were in this awful pressured position.
And so Odysseus, knowing he's going to be away for a long time, I don't think he quite thought it was going to be 5 years, but he thought he was going to be away for a long time. So he took his trusted friend, Mentor, and asked him to look out for Telemachus. Now, this is the bit where you go, haha, this is where it comes in. This is the story. But actually, Mentor was useless. He confused Telemachus. He gave him bad advice. He sent him the wrong track. And Telemachus was left feeling useless, uninspired, didn't know what to do with himself. So Athena, the Greek goddess of war and strategy, saw what was happening.
Just think real kick-ass woman, battle strategy and wisdom. If
I love that you've turned Homer into something that you would watch on a BBC
Always.
drama.
The actual essence is, anyway.
So Athena takes the form of mentor, comes down to earth, guides him, advises Telemachus properly. Telemachus fights off all the unwanted suitors, keeps control of the kingdom, and the rest, as we say, is history, with him winning out and everything going back to normal when Odysseus finally comes back from war. So everybody sits there and says, well, mentor comes from mentor, when actually it was the Greek goddess Athena, a woman, who stepped in and took the role of Telemachus, took the role of mentor, because she knew that Telemachus wouldn't necessarily listen. He would probably be baffled and bewildered by a Greek goddess appearing in front of him. But she took the form of his father's trusted advisor to guide him and direct him in the right way. So that is the origin story of mentor.
So the very first mentor that we have in writing isn't a man, it's a goddess who appeared and took the form of a man, because she knew in that way she could get her message across and be listened to.
Yeah.
Ladies,
so
I have to ask, is that not a really prime example of excellent empathy?
it is, and actually one of our speeches that we do for various organizations is all about that. It's all about, how the goddess had the if you like, emotional intelligence to sort of think, well, hang on a minute, I really need to get this man to listen. When am I going to speak to him? How am I going to speak to him? All the sort of things that we can learn from a really good mentor or a really good coach today. And actually went, that person's my best bet, and then calmly goes and delivers the wisdom that's needed. And that's what makes it a mentor relationship. She didn't sit down with a load of questions and, they didn't have 6 months or 8 months like a coach would over a longer period of time. It was like, we really need to give that wisdom now so that happens.
Yeah. And, we were always brought up with the golden rule, right? Which is treat others as you would expect to be treated.
Yeah.
But actually, we think there's something slightly better than that. And we've badged it the platinum rule in mentoring, which is treat others as they would want to be treated themselves. And that's one of the key things. It's that empathy line. It's that how you approach your position as a mentor, whether that's for a half-hour conversation over lunch or whether it's over a longer-term proper mentoring relationship, where you try and put yourself into the position of the person who's approaching you and asking you for that guidance and that support and giving them what they need rather than what you think they might need.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that we've got a story there. What are your thoughts on this, Sarah?
I'm just blown away by it. I'm so thrilled that it was Athena and not Mentor.
It's funny, I took a different message away from that story to you. There's a bloody man taking credit for a woman's work again.
Well, Julie, you've got to go with the positive.
Yeah.
You've got to go with the positive. I mean, quite honestly, this is going to sound really biased, but we're in good company. Why wouldn't it have been a woman? Seriously. Yeah. No, that explains a lot.
No, I thank you for sharing. That was dead interesting. A dead interesting story. I think I'm just thinking back to, like I said, we had Giselle Galper on, and she was talking to us about the fact that men are much better at seeking out mentors and about actively engaging with that and how it progresses their career. And it's something that she wants to champion women doing more of. And clearly, both of you are of the same vein. So I'm going to guess that we've got some listeners who they kind of get what a mentor is and they loosely know what they do. And they might have experimented with one. But could you, if I asked you to, could you tell me what good looks like in a mentor relationship for someone maybe early in their career or mid in their career? If that's not too broad a question.
And it's the short answer is yes, I can. The longer answer is it's a really meaty sort of answer. So I'm just sort of distilling several things. We have a certificate of excellence in mentoring, so I think it might be good to look at what we sort of have identified are the common things. We also talk about something called an 80-20 rule in mentoring, and in particular in mentoring sessions. So a good mentor, because a good mentor will speak for about 20% of the time and will spend 80% of the time listening. And the skill then in becomes there is an art to questioning and knowing what questions to ask, so you can pitch your advice at the right level, because of things like the platinum rule that Amira mentioned that we've adopted into the mentor standard, and also because of another thing that we call the golden law, which is just because you've experienced something yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you feel the same way about what both of you have shared experience of, if that makes sense. So, my mother passed away 18 months ago. Unfortunately, she had early onset dementia. So how I feel about her passing is going to be very different from somebody who lost their mother, probably had, maybe had a really good relationship with them and it was sudden, maybe a car accident. We both lost our mother, but we would feel completely different about having that shared experience. And I think sometimes we can assume a lot of similarity and project our own emotions onto other people. So that 80-20 rule, do you know someone who's a really good listener? Do they make you feel that you have something important to say and it's something important to contribute? Because very bad mentors will make it all about themselves. They'll make it all about, the fact that you should really be listening to the advice that's been poured into you, as an empty vessel sort of thing. And I am laying it on thick, but somebody's ability to listen, somebody's ability to give question. When you're looking for a mentor yourself, think about who that energizes you. Who do you feel good after speaking to and spending time with professionally, and have they got that experience that you seek?
Absolutely.
Do you want to add?
It comes down to the type of mentoring that you're looking for, right? So sometimes you can have a very specific problem that you just need a help and solution with. So what you're looking for is somebody with a particular skill set who can sit down with you over a coffee, over lunch. You can ask them the problem and they can give you that solution back. Or you're looking for some kind of career change, you're looking for a promotion, a step up into a different department, and you're looking for those key people who might be working in those roles or doing well in those roles, who may be able to help and guide you. And going back to Giselle's point, which is men are better at doing this than others, in a very stereotypical way, men are very good at building networks, but they're very good at building networks on quite superficial levels. So the going down to the pub at the end of the day, the water cooler chats, tends to fall into the stereotypical sports, how well the kids are doing, what's going on in the business, and they fall to that kind of superficial level, which actually does lend itself to business and career quite nicely. They're comfortable, safe areas that you can talk and support each other in. Whereas women, stereotypically, smaller networks, smaller groups of trusted friends, and the conversations that they tend to have go much deeper. So we go into the emotions, we go into how we're feeling, we're going into the injustices that have been done to us, So what we need to do is leverage both those things that are very good in those relationships and find the perfect balance of it. So it's that trusted person that you can pour your heart out to and say, this is affecting me. I want to progress. I lost out on that pay rise. How can I get the next one? All of these things which affect us in our day-to-day, but also have that nice big broad network where people know people, can introduce you to people if you don't know somebody that you want to progress into. And I think that's where the differences in how men and women traditionally network has evolved, and how both sides need to take a little bit of what's good from the other side as well, if that helps or makes sense.
It makes complete sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Women tend to be far more skeptical about networking.
Oh, totally.
On LinkedIn, I can guarantee if I send off some new connection requests, because, maybe I've been to a conference, I've been chatting to several people that, it's nice to stay in contact with them afterwards. I can guarantee that if it's a man that I'm sending the connection to, honestly, it'll be accepted. But women are far more like, well, I met them once at a conference. I don't know whether that means I should be connected.
Yeah. Or what are they going to sell me?
Or what are they going to sell me? Yeah.
I'm Googling you before I accept the request.
Yeah,
Totally.
and then but what we're missing by doing that is it's a Dr. Pepper moment, isn't it? What's the worst that can happen? Somebody can try and sell you something and you can go, no thank you,
Unfollow.
and if you really wanted to, or just no thank you, I'm not interested in that now, or I might be not interested in that at all. But the fact is, maybe they know somebody in their network that might be able to help you in the long term, and that's how you sort of grow. And I think we tend to put barriers up really quickly, assuming really negative things about people that want to join our tight little circle, and somewhere between accepting everybody, which I'm not a fan of, but being a bit more open. I think women, when it comes to networking and expanding their circle, certainly could benefit from the approach that men have, which is you never know, this person could help me further on. This person might be in a room that I'm not in when I need somebody to speak up on my behalf.
Okay. And we feel that the two are intrinsically linked. Mentoring and network, and your network and the people that you know are inherently linked to each other. Because the broader your network, the much more likely you are to find somebody or know somebody who knows the right person, who can help you with what you need for the next stage of your career or the next problem that you have. And that's why we spend quite a lot of time in our courses and promoting people going out there and building their networks, whether they're introverts and they would prefer to do it via the LinkedIn route, or they're a real extrovert and they want to go and join the networking groups. I'm terrible first thing in the morning. You will never see me at a BNI networking group because I just don't function very well at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I know that environment isn't very good for me.
Sorry, I let a laugh slip out there. I suppose that sort of went out of professional mode into.
But this is why those kind of networking groups do very well, because they're promoting a lot of informal, self-directed mentorship naturally within them. You're going to those meetings, yes, primarily because business, and if you're an entrepreneur, you want to promote your goods, you want to sell your services, but also you're in a room with 20 other people who are there championing you, helping you with your problem, answering questions about IT and marketing, and that's just mentoring happening in a really lovely collaborative environment.
Okay, now just for any of the listeners who have started having heart palpitations at the use of the word networking so much, can we direct you back to episode 47 with Nicola Peake? And that will help put the whole networking thing to bed for you. And you will feel at one with networking. All right.
Well, she does it very well.
So I'm gonna take an action away from what you ladies have said, and I am going to be more outgoing with
You're going to accept my connection request, Julie.
I will now accept your connection request, Julie. Yeah. And I challenge you, listeners, because I know it's not just me, for you to start accepting connections a little bit more on trust. Now, I've got a question for you. I don't know who would like to answer it, but my question is this. If I am, say, a woman in my 20s or my 30s, I work in a large corporate organization, and listen to you guys, I want a mentor. I kind of spotted the person in the organization that's doing the 80-20 rule with the talking, and I walk away from spending time with them feeling really energized. And like, according to you guys, that's who I want to be mentored by. Who do I ask them?
Perfect question.
Well, first of all, how well do you know the person that you've walked away from? I would go in and I would make the ask if I knew them already. I'm imagining the fact, because sometimes you can meet somebody and on that first meeting you can feel energized by them and inspired by them, but it might be a bit much if it's the first time that you've met that person to use the word mentoring. And there's several reasons for this, because it tends to make people panic, where you can sort of spend a bit of time nurturing that relationship, or not use that word and make it a specific ask for a short amount of time. So it can be something so that you can build trust with that person. And actually, if that session goes really well and you say thank you after that session, you can then maybe make the ask, if you like, the formal ask after that first coffee or that first cake where you've got on and you've said thank you and you built a bit of trust up, you've done a bit of learning, if you were looking for something on the longer term. So I'd make the ask really short. I'd be really specific about what I wanted help in, and I would say why I had chosen them. Because if we think about the reasons why people say yes to mentoring, it's A, to give back, because there's a sense of satisfaction from making a difference. When I've been asked historically whether I'll mentor somebody, the yes always comes really easily to people who say why they've selected me and showing their answer why they think I would make a good mentor. So, for example, if they said, Julie, I was at the conference that you spoke at the other week, and my research is in that area too, and I'm really inspired by what you've done on X. I would like to learn more about that. Is there any chance that you could spend half an hour for a cup of coffee? Can I email you to get a time in? And that way you're giving somebody out. But I would think, well, they've taken the time to come up. Clearly there's a reason for them selecting me. So it's not just, a blind ask from somebody that associates me with being a mentor. They've looked at my skill set. They've done a little bit of homework. It makes it so easy for me to say yes to that person, because they've already shown their professional side. They've already shown they're going to put that effort in and that professional credibility and effort. So that would be my advice.
Right.
If I knew them, how well do I know them would determine how soon I would make an ask for how long I could spend with them.
It sounds a bit like dating.
And
A little bit,
isn't it? But it is, but in one way, it is. It's about emotional bank accounts, isn't it? To use a Stephen Covey phrase, how much have you paid into that person's emotional bank account for them to trust and value you, so that yes comes easily? And if you look and you think, well, I haven't really had an opportunity to find that opportunity, because there will be ways for you to add value to that other person.
Yeah, and one tip. Go on, Sarah. Then I'll give you a tip after.
Is that the other sort of next step, is to say, how can I help you, or how can I support you if you're asking somebody for their help?
Yeah. That was the tip I was actually going to give. It's one thing when you're approaching mentorship is that it's often the case you go in there and you've heard mentoring is really good. You've heard you need a mentor. You want to do better. But you're not quite sure where to start. And that sort of ask of somebody is really hard, because you're basically asking that person, help me shape my career. I'm not sure quite what I want. And it's much better to go into that question and into that ask with a clear idea of what you want the outcome to be. So have you tried to get a pay rise and not been able to get it, but you've observed that somebody else has had that pay rise and has had that opportunity, so you want to go and learn from them? So, and that makes your ask really specific. Or you are, in my world and in my industry, people change roles quite a lot. You can go from customer service into the development team. You can go into compliance. So once you're in a large organization, there's lots of different directions you can move in. So if you see somebody really successful in one area and one department, you want to approach them and say, tell me more about what you do. I want to learn more about that role because I see it as being interesting, seeing something that I want to move into, which then makes it hopefully super easy for the person on the receiving end of that request to go, yes, absolutely. I don't mind doing that because you've been clear about your expectations and what you want from me. And of course, I'll be happy to help. Because one of the things that puts mentors off is that time fallacy. Is that, oh, this is going to take me a lot of time. This is going to take me away from what I do every day. This is going to be a burden on me. And what's really important is to make sure that this relationship becomes a two-way thing and both benefit from it.
So just to add to Amira's point there, if you get asked what we call the wishy-washy ask, which is, I've heard that, having a mentor would really help me. I really admire you. I feel brilliant when I'm around you. I think you're so inspirational. You're where I want to be in my career. Can you help me? I would advise really strongly that you gracefully turn that offer down, because mentors do find it really, well, they take a great deal of satisfaction from being a mentor and making a positive difference in somebody else's life, and as you should. But if you say yes to a wishy-washy request, you are just going to end up being frustrated. We have a course for mentees, which is, if you're serious about going into a mentorship properly prepared, here's the due diligence you need to have done. Here's how well you need to know yourself. So you pitch it right so you can get a mentor of worth. in how you make that ask. And particularly if you're being asked to be a mentor and you're in that position, you're clearly, well respected in your career. Have you honestly got the time to take someone who's rudderless in their career and help them? That's really something that individual needs to have taken responsibility for themselves. And it's not that difficult to do, I don't think.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is...
Sorry, go on, Julie.
I was going to say just one more thing. The other reason to say yes is, when you're thinking about the time, mentors are 6 times more likely to be promoted than those who don't mentor. So if you're thinking, is it worth me investing my time in here? The sort of financial reward will come, and that's research proven, not in a way that you would expect, but it will come. And the research shows that it comes quite quickly as well after you start the role of a mentor.
Within a year of mentoring, you are 6 times more likely to get a promotion.
That's
really so it's
powerful.
Not just the altruistic, I want to do it to give back, I want to do it to help people. There's a real kind of career benefit for those who want to approach mentoring. And the lovely counter stat to that, it's slightly less, but if you have a mentor, you are 5 times more likely to get that promotion or secure that job that you're looking for as well. So that shows the tangible power of having a mentor or being a mentor.
I think there's so many things there that you've said that I think are really interesting. From Julie, your tips about the initial approach. And how I was saying in my 20s, I'd give Sarah's left arm to have had a mentor. Do you know what? I wouldn't have known what to do with it though.
Exactly.
20-something-year-old me would have turned up thinking that you had all the answers and you were going to tell me what to do. So people that are sitting there listening to this, you think, I want a mentor. So what Julie's just been explaining to us, Amira, is that you need to take accountability and responsibility for yourself. Get specific about what it is you want to achieve. And that presumably is going to increase your chances of successfully getting the right mentor and making it a successful relationship for both mentee and mentor.
You've hit the nail on the head, Julie.
If only I'd have said it just like that, Julie, we'd have saved 5 minutes of podcast time. That was an epic. Well done. Really good.
You're all right. We don't charge by the minute. We're good. No, and I think obviously you've got your business, the Mentor Standard, and we'll put links to that in the show notes for everybody. The business is all about supporting the mentee and the mentor. And obviously, we've spoke about the positivity of the relationship. Don't worry, people listening. They were warned I was going to go here. I learned this really cool phrase from my trainer. It's called the shadow side. There's a shadow side of everything, which is a really nice way of saying the arseholes. Yeah, I did say that. So
we call them bad apples, but arseholes works as well.
Well, to give them the full title, the narcissistic arseholes. But
absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's only fair if we're supporting people to go through this process or to explore it, that to help them identify when they're in a relationship where that's not how it's meant to be. Mm. Is this something you're comfortable kind of talking with us about?
Absolutely. I'll start with the preemptive bit, right? So one of the first things we say to anyone who's setting up a mentoring relationship is that there is a covenant that you both agree to, which is either one of you can walk away from that relationship at any time without any judgment or any questions asked. So if the mentor feels that they can't give that value or that person is not turning up and being accountable, they can say, you know what, let's end it here. We've had a really good run at this. Let's move on. And vice versa, the mentee can say the same thing. Because what we find is miscommunication and lack of understanding and proper setting up that relationship successfully at the beginning often leads to those relationships not working very well after the initial enthusiasm has kind of burnt out of it. So that's the foundation bit that we take into this, because we know that sometimes these things don't go right, whether it's for a less uncomfortable reason than the narcissistic arsehole, but also it gives them that clause. If they don't have the confidence to say, you're not working for me, it gives them that soft exit as well from it. But we do have a module in both our courses, so one for the mentors, one for the mentees, that deals with these bad apples and the scenarios that come up with it. And I think that, Julie, you can give a really good summary of a couple of those that we come across.
I think it's really important to acknowledge that we are anti the fact that anyone who becomes a mentor suddenly gets like such a huge applaud and isn't it wonderful and you're a mentor. And it's, you know, sometimes people are drawn to the role for the wrong reasons. Let's say it as it is. Sometimes certain personality types are drawn to positions of power for the wrong reasons. First of all, if anyone makes you feel small in whatever way, or makes you self-doubt yourself in any other way, I mean, there's a whole heap of support about how the depth behind the fact that nobody can make you feel that way without an element of you consenting to it, but where you are fully protected in exploring that, and also in saying to the other person, or how to handle it if you're part of a formal program and you have a mentor who you are very uncomfortable being around, you know, what steps to take. Amira's mentioned the graceful exit clause that we have, which can be, you know, but the steps to take before you trigger that, so that professionally, when you both walk away, no damage is done in how, you know, publicly, how each other is seen. But I think Amira touched it, and the majority of mentorships go awry because people with their best will think that mentoring is really simple and think, you know, yeah, I can be a mentor, I can do that, it's really simple, I'm empowered to say yes. And you jump in with expectations of what your mentee is going to do and how it's going to be like, and then your mentor jumps in with expectations and they're not in alignment. So the bumping comes further down the line. We have 3 keystone documents. So we have a mentoring contract, which is 2 sides of A4, that's it. But the depth behind that to ensure that neither the mentee nor the mentor end up further down the road in a position which would cause pain for either the mentee or the mentor is really quite strong. We have something called the Mentoring Code of Ethics. So the first point of that is, you know, to help but do no harm, to support without rescuing. So there's a, you know, a level of ethos that's supported there, which can be discussed in a matter of minutes, you know, so it's not a big job at all for the mentor or the mentee when they go there, but it saves time and hurt further down the line when you go off. And as we say, if you're unlucky enough to experience a personality type that, you know, really shouldn't be in a position of power, there's also help for you there. If you're listening now and you're one of Julie's listeners and you think, gosh, this is really resonating with me, what can I do? If you're in a formal mentoring program, the first thing is to speak to your program director. If you feel uncomfortable about that, share your thoughts with a colleague. It's actually amazing when somebody does that, when somebody says, do you know, there's that person, I just feel so uncomfortable around them, how suddenly everybody goes, oh gosh, do you feel like that? Because I sort of, you know, I've gone a bit goosebumpy sort of saying that. But if you don't want to talk to anyone, you can talk to the program director. And our experience is it's entirely possible to move you in your mentorship sometimes without even the person, you know, being told why they are, and by that being dealt with HR, you know, further down the line in a separate way. If you're on your own, and it's what we call a self-directed mentorship, other people call it informal, but we think that's sort of insulting and less empowering. So we talk about self-directed mentorship. If that's you and you're in a position where you are, then you reach out to a friend. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn. We'll happily share some of the techniques that we have with our mentees to make sure that you can get yourself out of that situation. But the important thing is to know that you're empowered. You do not have to meet a mentor, no matter what you agreed at the start. If it's not working out for you now and you don't feel able or empowered enough to say the reasons why, blame your diary for now until you can get that support and that help from your friends, but don't put up with it.
Absolutely. And I think the important thing is it's the level of discomfort, right? So a mentor is always there to challenge you. So a challenging discomfort is absolutely fine. They're there to push you. They're there to help you achieve your goals, but they must never make you feel uncomfortable. They mustn't say something that's inappropriate. They mustn't suggest something that is not morally correct. It's important that you're very clear and upfront about your values as a person when you go into it as well, and what's on and off limits for you to talk about, because you can go into mentoring relationships, particularly through formal mentoring programs, where actually you've got very little in common with the other person, and you can come from completely different backgrounds. And it's sometimes good to say up front, I'm only here for help with my career. I really don't want to talk about social issues or politics or something like that, because I know we're going to differ on it. And it's good to be that upfront about it. But then if somebody's continuing to press the point and wants to take you somewhere where you're going to feel really uncomfortable, you are fully empowered as a mentee to walk away from it. And it's to do that with grace rather than with something that is going to leave a bad taste in both your mouths. That's the key to trying to do it well in the whole relationship. And that's what we try and teach people, and try and give them those skills and tools to help them do that gracefully.
I just sort of, as you were talking, Amira, just thinking there are 12 signs that we have worked out that identify a toxic mentor, and we sort of look at them in severity. So the final 3 are what we call the unforgivables. And if you want that document, it's actually on our LinkedIn page. So if you head over to our LinkedIn page, we actually posted that there as a post. So if you're looking at, well, I'm not sure, am I blowing it out of proportion? Is there any resource that I can have to check for that? You can find that there.
Absolutely.
All right. If I can figure out how to do it, I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Brilliant.
So these are the character traits. I think I really want
I'll
to
find the link to the post and send it to you, Julie.
Right, thank you. I think I really want to say thank you to you both for that last section, because there probably is someone sitting there listening to this that is in a relationship that isn't functioning quite as it should be. And what you've done is you've given them reassurance and practical steps that they can take. And I think the other thing I would say to that person is it's not just you. I found myself in that situation.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I think sometimes we blame ourselves for things. And I just want to say, now that you've spotted it, you are responsible for changing it.
Yeah.
But Julie and Amira have just given us tips on how to do that.
Yeah. And with grace.
I think it's always important with whatever to realise that you're not powerless.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So Sarah, what are your thoughts on what we heard so far? Because I could see you you're moving forward on the edge of your seat as the two of them are chatting.
Was I fidgeting? Yeah, I'm a bit of a fidget. Well, there are 2 things really. One, reflecting back on your own life and work experience and things you've witnessed or experienced yourself, and thinking, gosh, yeah, that would have been really useful. And then also bringing it right up today in a position where I'm fortunate to be in a position to be mentoring others, which I find really exciting, because that means more young women coming into our profession, which is, let's have more Athenas. So it's made me think about having that conversation, actually sitting down, because we were going to have conversations this week about and getting that agreement. So it's kind of formal and informal, but listening to that, it's just having that conversation. What do you expect from me, so that I can really deliver it right, and I can make sure they are getting out of it just what they need, and not, I think it was referred to earlier, not what I think they need. Because, it's so easy, isn't it, to think, oh, I'm the wise old 55-year-old bird who's been in the business for 33 years. I must, But again, we are all so different. And even if they think of those that I might be mentoring, they themselves are completely different characters and personalities and have themselves different goals. So I'm going to be working with each of those completely differently, no doubt. So I've just found it really invaluable. I think it's the language you use and the way you've gone about it, and you've given almost, you say empowered, but it's almost like sometimes as women, we do have to be told, actually, we do have the right to just say no or change things, or we are capable of doing, changing things, or having that empowerment. I think and not putting the blame on ourselves. It's just really enlightening. And I think it's, if you think about the power we can have, not just with our fellow colleagues or people in the workplace with formal relationships, but also with clients in financial services.
Absolutely.
Where the relationship, Julie and I were talking about it a bit earlier before you came in, is automatically a mentorship. And it just seems to happen by default, but it's thinking about how to actually manage that side of the relationship with the client as well. I thought, yeah, you got my brain going on that one.
So there's a really interesting story with Sheryl Sandberg. And if you haven't heard who Sheryl is, she was on the ExCo teams at both Facebook and at Google and launched the Lean In movement. Her book is called Lean In, and it's all about how women can be more proactive, not in a blame way. It's a lot deeper than that. But this particular story illustrates how, as women, we accept things through society's conditioning without even thinking about it. So Sheryl was speaking at a conference, and she was, the time was running out. So she got to the end of the conference and she said, okay, this will be the last question. And somebody, put their hand up, and Sheryl answered it. And then she said, okay, we'll stop now. But then turned around and saw that two other men had still got their hands up. So proceeded to answer the men's questions after having said that will be the last question. And at the end, when she was signing her books, one of the women queued up and said to her, Sheryl, I hold you in really high esteem, but you did say that would be the last question. And I looked around the room and saw that everyone that put their hands down, they were all women. And the men didn't. The men sat there and thought, well, there might be an opportunity here. That was almost like that was the last bell ringing in the pub for the drink or whatever. I've still got maybe a chance to order. And she did actually go on to take two more questions. But the fact is, the women had ruled themselves. It's the first time they sort of thought, okay, there's the rule, quietly obeying it. So I guess what we can take from that is, maybe if someone says, that's the last chance, or I'm not doing any more of that, what will a cheeky ask get you? What will a...
Do you know what was going through my head, don't you?
Yeah.
Anytime I find myself in that situation now, I am going to assume it's last orders at the bar.
Go forward.
And I could go on. They'll still give me another one.
You've got to make up for that height difference there, Julie, and sort of moving through. So.
Well, and it'll be fine. They'll give me another one.
Here's another one. Yeah, exactly right. And look, we've talked a lot about how mentorship can help careers here, but because this is predominantly a women's audience as well, it's important to recognize that women go through life stages that are quite earth-shifting. That transition to motherhood, that transition into perimenopause, into menopause, have big impacts on us. And we can plan our mentorships. Mentorship doesn't have to be something that you need now for this promotion or this pay rise or this problem that you're having with a specific person in your team. If you know you're going on a career break, set your mentor up now so that they can be there to support you for that transition back into work. As you're approaching perimenopause, we are of a certain age and it is all starting now to happen and affect us. Reach out to those women that are further down that journey, because by God, they're going to be really good mentors for you in that workplace to help you go through that same thing. And they will be willing and open to share and have that experience and opportunity with you. So it's really good to know that it's not just work stuff that we have to think about and we have to do for, because this will help our transition back into work better. It will help allow us to prolong our careers more with the right mentoring support. We don't want the medical support. That can be given elsewhere, but a good mentor to say, you know what, you're all right. If you're having a brain fuzz today, that's fine. But don't forget, you've got 20 years of knowledge in you. Go take a break. You'll be fine tomorrow. And sometimes that person who can be there on your side is going to be so powerful for you. And I think that's really important for us to kind of note and recognize here as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Absolutely. So if I just kind of summarised our whistle-stop tour of all the cracking advice we've had so far. So Julie was giving us the tip, when you're mentor shopping, so you're sitting in the team meeting or you're in the conference, you're looking for the person that's doing the 80-20 talking and that leaves you feeling energized. Then, if you don't know them very well, we're going to go on a really subtle sort of courting spree. And we're going to get very specific when we approach them. And we're not going to dive straight in. Do you want to get married? We're going to ask them out for coffee,
Absolutely.
first of all,
We'll
aren't
date
we?
a little bit first. Yeah.
Just coffee. It's nothing wrong. It's just coffee.
But it's
And
never
then-
just coffee.
That's another podcast. And then, Amira, you were giving us the really good advice. If you're the person that's been approached to mentor, it's just being able to spot when to gracefully decline and exit the situation. Then we're going to get a link for the character traits for the shadow side of mentoring, of when you maybe need to start shopping for a new one. There's just been so much that you've covered, and I'm really, really grateful to you for giving up your time. And I think you just slipped the line into the conversation, but it's the one that jumped out at me on your website about lifting others up. I think that
is our entire purpose that runs through everything that we do as humans, but we carried this into the business as well. We only win if we all win. So we must always look to rise by lifting others up, not by treading on somebody on the way on your journey. And that is so important to us.
So the depth to that in our company is that we're a pending B Corp company. Right. So when we look at the rise by lifting others, we mean not only as a mentor, we mean as how we act in a business, how we act towards our stakeholders, how we act towards our suppliers. It really does run through everything.
Brilliant.
I think that's why you're aligned with ourselves here at the Women and Money Cafe podcast, because we live and die by that as well. If you don't live and die by that, you're probably listening to the wrong podcast. Go and find Dave Ramsey. Okay.
I don't know who Dave Ramsey is, but I do know that I love this podcast and you've had some brilliant speakers on here. And that is the essence of what you guys are doing, which is bringing good people to the table and to the sofa to have good conversations and help other people find their way. And that's the important spirit of generosity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Julie, could we maybe just cover one more thing which we're passionate about, and that's like a lot of people stop being a mentor. You know, we haven't got enough people, good people, you know, the people that rise by lifting others with that right philosophy in their hearts, stepping forward. And I really think that comes from a lack of self-doubt and almost, you know, the question of why on earth would someone listen to me? So if that's resonating with you and you're listening and you're thinking, yeah, you know, well, maybe next year or maybe in the next 5 years, you know, then I'll be ready. If we all waited for somebody to step forward from the shadows and sort of say, that's it, you're ready, here's your pin, go out into the world now, we'd all still be waiting. So the first thing is to say, when we have a little bit of knowledge, we tend to assume that everybody else has that knowledge and it's common sense. And it's an assumption that we have. And the fact is they don't. Not everybody knows what you do. It's not common sense. And you could help somebody by sharing that wisdom. And that takes us right back to Athena, you know, the ancient goddess of wisdom and battle strategy. Why should you become a mentor? Well, really, because you can. And the sense of satisfaction that you can receive through making a positive difference in somebody else's life and career is huge. The chances are that you got where you are today because somebody helped you. And if that's true, here's your call, here's your invitation, if you like, to all of the listeners out there. You don't have to be in your mid-50s, like some of us are, you know, with a like looking at my platinum hair, lovely hair. But you don't have to be like that. You only have to be sometimes one chapter ahead to help somebody. You don't even have to be one chapter ahead to help somebody. You could have a completely different perspective, which would really help somebody. So if you are thinking about being a mentor, but holding back for this person that's going to leap from the shadows with your golden pin and tell you that you're ready, please don't. What can you do? Just start talking about it. I promise you, the minute you start talking in your trusted circles about the fact that you're thinking of being a mentor, there will be at least one, probably 2, 3 people that go, I could really benefit from that. And if you're thinking, okay, I hear all of that, but I would still like to know a little bit more, then obviously we'll send some resources, and our links are with Julie, but
and we're
don't
here to
hold
help.
back.
Absolutely.
I think that's a valid point. There is no, like, you don't get to a point in life where all of a sudden somebody turns up at the door and goes, oh, by the way, you graduated, you're now able to be a mentor. You don't get the knock at the door, do you? I think there's one more thing I would add to that, actually, and it's because we talked about how to get a mentor through networking, or if you're in a large corporation, and it's how do you get a mentor if you're someone like me and Sarah, where you're running your own business or you're entrepreneurs. And I think the one I would throw out there for people is, I know that I'm in a Facebook group that's full of other women financial advisors. And the support that you get in there is phenomenal. So go and find where people like you hang out and get involved in that community, because if you're an entrepreneur, it can be really lonely, and you can get so much support there.
Totally.
And your mentor could be living in that group, and your mentee could be living in that group. Let's all get together and play.
Totally. Totally right.
And if you see somebody that you think would make a good mentor, and you're not maybe looking for mentorship yourself at the moment, please tell them that you think they'd make a good mentor, because that external validation from somebody might just
be what they
result
need.
in that little boost of confidence that they need to then go on and say yes to somebody else that they could really help.
Right. Okay. Maybe hopefully we've just created an army.
I love an army.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
An army for good. Yeah.
Ladies, when we're finishing up a show, we like to throw in a little random question every now and again, just because we're the curious type, because we're genuinely interested in people. So we would like to ask you, what was the last book that you both read?
Oh, that's a good question. So we actually adopted a Swedish tradition, a Christmas tradition, a few years ago, and that is to exchange books on Christmas Eve. There is a name for it, but I can't pronounce it, so I won't embarrass myself by trying.
Begins with the letter J.
Yes, Jokkaflod. There you go. I had a go. Probably all the Swedish are really upset with me now for saying it.
Or probably in admiration for you trying.
Having a go. So I got a book this year which was called Tough Women, and it's an anthology of stories of women who are sharing their experiences in very small snippet short stories. So anything from a lady who does transatlantic rowing, a lady who cycled the whole length and breadth of America. There's great stories in there, women tackling adversity from war-torn countries, and there's such inspirational, lovely stories that I would thoroughly recommend it if you want a bit of an uplift.
Right, Tough Women. It's going in the show notes, folks. And so, Julie, what book did you get for Christmas Eve this year then?
Christmas Eve this year, my book was by Ben Fogel, and it's called Labrador, the story of the world's best loved dog. And if you didn't see our black Labrador make an appearance earlier, and you didn't hear her whining in the background, then we do have a 2-year-old black lab who's completely enriched our lives and changed our lives. And it's a really interesting read all about his relationship with his Labrador, and also the Queen's relationship with her Labrador. Loads of other really interesting facts. Look, I'm geeking out on Labradors here now, but if you own a Labrador and you haven't read it, try it.
I didn't know this was a Swedish tradition, because it happens in my house as well.
Yeah.
So everybody gets a new book on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was Swedish. What's mine?
Your book this year?
What's his name? Is it Who Did the World According to Garp? Apparently it's his last ever book, but it's like a tombstone. I'm trying to figure out, I'll need to go to the gym just to be able to read it. John Irvin. It's John Irvin. So I think it just reminds me to say, Julie, Amira, you've been awesome. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for being such great hosts for us and asking such good questions.
Sarah, any last words from yourself?
Other than thank you, and I'm so chuffed to have met you, I'm actually thinking about all the other mentors in our lives that are in our families and our other connections outside of our work and career, and to not forget those.
If it's something you're interested in, go and check out the website. We'll put their contact details as well. If you're thinking about being a mentor, just go and bloody do it. If you're thinking about being a mentee, just go and bloody do it. If you start this journey, we would love to hear how you get on with it.